The heart monitor beeped steadily as Dr. Maya Thompson's skilled hands worked with precision inside the tiny cavity. Beads of sweat formed on her forehead, but her focus never wavered from the 4-month-old golden retriever puppy on her operating table. The fluorescent lights of the emergency surgical suite cast a stark glow over the scene as her colleagues watched in silent anticipation. "Clamp," she requested quietly, her voice steady despite the pressure. Dr. Sarah Chen, her assistant surgeon, responded immediately. The puppy had swallowed a small battery, and the chemical reaction was burning through its intestinal wall. Traditional surgical methods would take too long. The puppy wouldn't survive the extensive procedure. Maya's mind raced through the innovative technique she'd been developing. She hadn't tested it yet, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Her fingers moved with deliberate grace as she implemented her modification of the standard approach, reducing what would typically be a 2-hour surgery into a potentially life-saving 30-minute procedure. "BP's stabilizing," announced the veterinary technician, relief evident in her voice. Maya allowed herself a small smile behind her surgical mask. From the observation window, she could see other staff members gathering, drawn by word of her unconventional method. "Close him up," Maya instructed Dr. Chen, stepping back to allow her colleague to complete the final steps. Pulling off her surgical cap, she revealed a mass of perfectly maintained box braids tied back in a professional bun. At 34, Maya carried herself with the poise of someone who had seen far more than her years might suggest. Outside the operating room, Rex, her German shepherd, waited patiently in her office. He lifted his head as she approached, his warm brown eyes following her movements as she changed out of her scrubs. The dog's sleek black and tan coat gleamed under the office lights, a testament to his excellent care. "Another day, another miracle," commented Dr. Chen, entering the office with the puppy's charts. "That technique you used, it's revolutionary, Maya. You should publish it." Maya scratched behind Rex's ears as she reviewed the post-op notes. "Let's make sure our little friend recovers first. But yes, I've been documenting the theoretical framework. Could change the game for emergency foreign body removals." The setting sun painted her office in warm hues through the large windows. Family photos adorned her desk. Maya in military fatigues receiving commendations, Maya at her veterinary school graduation, and a special photo of her with Rex the day she adopted him from the canine retirement program. Each image told a piece of her story, though few knew its full scope. "Ready for our walk, boy?" Maya asked, reaching for Rex's leash. The shepherd's tail wagged once, professionally restrained but cheerful. His military training showed in every movement, efficient, purposeful, yet gentle. As they prepared to leave, Maya's office phone rang. The shelter she ran needed her approval for a new rescue intake. She handled it quickly, her natural leadership evident in how smoothly she coordinated complex logistics while gathering her things. Stepping out into the evening air, Maya took a deep breath. These walks with Rex were her favorite part of the day. A chance to decompress, to shed the weight of being the city's most innovative veterinary surgeon. Her pastel blue scrubs and white coat were traded for comfortable athletic wear, making her look like any other professional enjoying an evening stroll. Little did she know, this ordinary evening was about to become anything but routine. The autumn air carried the crisp scent of fallen leaves as Maya and Rex made their way down Maple Avenue. The streetlights were just beginning to flicker on, casting long shadows across the well-maintained sidewalks. Maya's mind wandered to the successful surgery earlier, but her peaceful reflection was interrupted by Rex's subtle change in posture. His ears twitched backward, picking up sounds that hadn't yet registered to human ears. Maya didn't break stride or turn around, but her senses, honed through years of Special Forces training, heightened instantly. The familiar surge of adrenaline felt like greeting an old friend. In the reflection of a parked car's window, she caught glimpses of 5 men who had emerged from a side street about 50 yards back. Their spacing was too uniform, their pace too measured. These weren't casual evening walkers. Just like Kandahar. Eh boy. Maya whispered to Rex, her voice barely audible. During her tours as a combat medic, she'd learned to spot patterns. The way these men moved reminded her of the coordinated approaches she'd witnessed in combat zones, except these followers lacked the discipline of trained soldiers. Rex maintained his calm trot beside her, but Maya noticed his muscles tensing beneath his sleek fur. The shepherd had been through extensive protection training, yet to anyone watching, he appeared to be just another pet out for a walk. Maya smiled slightly, remembering her instructor's words. The best advantage is the one your opponent doesn't know you have. The men were closing the distance now. Maya's mind calculated escape routes and tactical positions, just as she had done countless times during her military career. The park ahead offered open sightlines, but limited cover. The coffee shop to her left had security cameras and witnesses. The narrow alley to her right, a potential trap. She pulled out her phone, appearing to check messages while actually activating its emergency recording feature, another habit from her intelligence training days. The screen's reflection showed her pursuers more clearly. 5 men, ranging from their mid-20s to early 40s, trying too hard to look casual in their coordinated movements. The leader's jacket bulged slightly on the right side, concealing something. Maya's trained eye caught the subtle print of what could be a weapon. Her pulse remained steady, her breathing controlled. This wasn't her first time being targeted, though the setting was certainly different from her combat days. Forward, she commanded Rex in German, one of the 6 languages she spoke fluently. The shepherd responded instantly, adjusting his pace to maintain perfect heel position. Together, they presented the image of an ordinary woman walking her well-trained pet, but they were so much more. Maya's hand brushed against the small capsule on her keychain, a military-grade defensive tool disguised as an ordinary house key. Her other hand held Rex's leash with practiced ease, ready to release it with a specific finger movement that would signal Rex's protection protocols. The sun had almost completely set now, painting the sky in deep purples and blues. Maya decided to let the situation play out rather than call for backup. Her combat experience told her these men, despite their attempts at coordination, were amateurs. Besides, she had Rex, and they had no idea what either of them was capable of. As the footsteps behind her grew closer, Maya felt an odd sense of calm. Some people spent their lives running from confrontation, but Maya Thompson had spent years running toward it, saving lives under heavy fire, and training for moments exactly like this one. The real question wasn't whether she could handle what was coming. It was whether they could handle her. The local park's entrance loomed ahead, its wrought iron gates catching the last remnants of daylight. Maya noted how the men behind her had spread out, attempting to cut off potential escape routes. Their formation reminded her of a training exercise gone wrong during her Special Forces days, overconfident operators making rookie mistakes. As she approached the park's stone archway, 2 more figures emerged from the shadows ahead. Maya suppressed a smile. Their attempt to flank her was textbook, but their execution was sloppy. She could hear their heavy breathing, their feet scuffing against the pavement, signs of nervousness they couldn't hide from her trained ear. "Evening, ma'am," the leader called out, his mock politeness dripping with malice. He stepped into the light, revealing a muscular build and a distinctive military bearing. Maya's tactical assessment kicked in automatically. Former military, probably discharged, carrying something in his jacket, favoring his right side. "Seems like you might be lost." Rex remained perfectly still beside her, his training evident in how he waited for commands rather than reacting to the obvious threats. Maya kept her voice steady, professional, the same tone she used in both operating rooms and combat situations. "Actually, I know exactly where I am." The group had formed a loose circle around her now, 7 men in total. Their leader took another step forward, hand hovering near his jacket pocket. Maya noticed his stance, the way he positioned his feet. He was preparing to draw something. "Pretty dog you got there," one of the others commented, eyeing Rex with misplaced confidence. "Bet he's all show, no bite." Rex's only response was to yawn, displaying an impressive set of teeth in what appeared to be a completely natural gesture. Maya subtly shifted her weight to her back foot, a movement so slight it was nearly imperceptible. Her fingers loosened their grip on Rex's leash in a specific pattern, a signal they had practiced countless times. "You know," she said conversationally, "there's an interesting thing about assumptions." The leader's hand moved slightly closer to his jacket. "Yeah, what's that?" "They can get you killed in combat," Maya replied, switching effortlessly to the military jargon she'd noticed in his bearing. "Isn't that right, Staff Sergeant? Based on that ranger tattoo peeking out from your sleeve, though I'm guessing you didn't finish the program." The man's expression flickered with surprise, his hand freezing mid-movement. The others glanced at their leader, their coordinated front showing its first cracks. "How did you?" he started, but Maya cut him off. "Your approach pattern is Rangers basic training, circa 2015 to 2018. The way you favor your right side suggests CUC training, but your stance is sloppy, meaning you either didn't complete the course or you've gotten rusty." She paused, letting her words sink in. "By the way, your friend on the left should really consider his positioning. He's in your line of fire if you're carrying what I think you are." The silence that followed was deafening. The leader's companions shifted uncomfortably, their earlier bravado evaporating as they realized they weren't dealing with an ordinary target. "Now," Maya continued, her voice taking on the commanding tone that had once guided Special Forces teams through hostile territory, "we can either end this evening professionally, or I can demonstrate why assuming I'm lost in my own neighborhood was your second mistake." She let that hang in the air before adding, "Your first was disregarding my dog." Rex, still appearing completely relaxed, shifted his weight almost imperceptibly. To untrained eyes, he looked like a pet preparing to sit. To Maya, he was coiling like a spring, ready to execute any of the dozens of combat maneuvers they had perfected together. The next move was theirs, and Maya knew exactly how it would play out. The leader's confidence cracked first. His hand darted toward his jacket, but Maya had already anticipated the move. In one fluid motion, she stepped to the side, her body flowing like water around the incoming threat. Years of combat training had taught her that the most effective defense wasn't about strength, it was about timing. "Shuts," Maya commanded in crisp German. Rex transformed instantly, his relaxed demeanor vanishing. The shepherd moved with military precision, positioning himself strategically between Maya and the aggressors, his training evident in every controlled muscle. Two of the men lunged forward, expecting an easy target. The first one reached for Maya's arm, but grasped only air as she executed a perfect defensive maneuver. Her movement was economical, precise, the kind of efficiency that only comes from years of real-world experience. "Your technique's sloppy," Maya commented, her voice still professionally calm. "Marine Corps, right? But you're telegraphing your moves like a first-week recruit." Her words carried the weight of someone who had trained countless soldiers, and the recognition in the man's eyes confirmed her assessment. Rex maintained his defensive position, his eyes tracking every movement. When one of the men tried to circle behind Maya, the shepherd adjusted his stance without needing a command. The group was quickly learning that what they'd dismissed as a pet was actually a highly trained military asset. "Next time you plan an ambush," Maya continued, sidestepping another attempt to grab her, "try not to pick a target who spent 5 years training special forces in close-quarters combat." She moved again, this time using one man's momentum to send him stumbling into his companion. "And maybe don't choose someone who rehabilitates military working dogs for a living." The leader, his earlier bravado evaporating, made one final attempt. He pulled something from his jacket, a small blade that caught the streetlight. Before he could even complete the motion, Rex let out a single, sharp bark. The sound wasn't aggressive. It was a trained response, a warning that carried the weight of professional canine authority. Maya's voice cut through the tension. "That's a Kobar knockoff. Poor balance, probably bought it at a surplus store." Her tone was almost educational. Want to know how I know? Because I carried the real thing through 3 tours in special operations. One of the men in the back started to step away, finally reading the situation clearly. "Boss," he muttered, "this lady ain't what we thought." "You've got 2 options," Maya stated, her posture relaxed but ready. "First option, you all walk away, right now, and we pretend this evening never happened." She paused, letting Rex demonstrate a perfect heel turn that showcased his training. "Second option, I let Rex show you why he was the top-rated protection dog in his military unit, right before I demonstrate what a combat medic knows about human anatomy." The leader looked from Maya to Rex, then at his increasingly uncertain companions. His military background was enough to recognize when a situation had turned against him. The knife disappeared back into his jacket. "Smart choice," Maya noted. "By the way, your unit insignia tattoo. The dates suggest you served in Afghanistan around the same time I was running combat medical training at Bagram. Funny how small the world is." The group began to back away, their coordinated approach now a disorganized retreat. As they moved, Maya pulled out her phone, letting them see her clearly record their faces. "Just insurance," she explained. "I'm sure we all want to keep this professional." Rex remained perfectly positioned, his discipline unwavering until the last man disappeared around the corner. Only then did Maya allow herself a small smile. "Good boy," she whispered, knowing that their evening walk was about to become even more interesting. Maya maintained her tactical position for 30 seconds after the group's retreat, a habit ingrained from years of combat experience. She noticed the leader lingering behind the others, his military training evident in how he assessed her one final time. There was something in his expression now, not just defeat, but recognition. "Wait," he said suddenly, turning back. His posture had changed, tension replaced by dawning realization. "Thompson. Dr. Maya Thompson." His voice carried a mix of disbelief and growing horror. "From Victory Veterinary." Maya kept Rex at ready position, but allowed a slight smile to cross her face. "Finally made the connection, did you?" The leader's face drained of color. "You saved my sister's cat last month. The emergency surgery everyone said was impossible." He swallowed hard. "Sarah hasn't stopped talking about you since." "Maple's doing well," Maya replied professionally, as if they were having a routine follow-up conversation in her clinic. "The tumor removal was tricky, but she's recovered beautifully. Your sister followed the post-op instructions perfectly." The remaining members of the group, who had paused their retreat to watch this exchange, began shifting uncomfortably. One of them stepped forward, recognition also dawning on his face. "Holy shit," he muttered. "You're the vet who runs that program for veterans with PTSD. The one who trains service dogs." He looked at Rex with new understanding. "My cousin got his support dog from your program." Maya maintained her tactical awareness while nodding. "The Healing Paws Initiative. We've paired over 50 veterans with service dogs in the past 3 years." She glanced meaningfully at their leader. "Many of them former Rangers, like yourself." The leader's military bearing crumbled entirely. "I didn't. We didn't." "No," Maya finished for him. "That's usually the problem, isn't it? Making assumptions without full intelligence." She relaxed her stance slightly but kept her voice firm. "Your sister Sarah showed me photos of your family at Thanksgiving. You were wearing your dress uniform. 3 commendation medals, if I remember correctly. Earned them saving your unit under heavy fire." He nodded mutely, shame evident in his posture. "Then you know better than this," Maya continued. "We both served. Both saw what real brotherhood looks like. It doesn't look like this." She gestured to the scattered group. "It doesn't ambush people in their own neighborhood." Rex, sensing the shift in energy, maintained his alert but non-threatening stance. Maya had trained him to read complex situations, and he was performing perfectly. "The cat surgery," the leader said quietly. "Sarah said you worked through the night. Didn't charge her extra for the emergency care." "Every life has value," Maya replied. "That's what I learned as a combat medic. It's what I practice as a vet." She paused, letting her words sink in. "It's what I'd hope other veterans remember too." The weight of the evening's choices seemed to crash down on the group. The leader's military training was now working against his earlier bravado, forcing him to confront the magnitude of their mistake. "Tomorrow," Maya said, her tone shifting to what her clinic staff called her doctor voice, "I'm running a workshop at the VA, teaching veterans to train their own service dogs. Could always use more experienced handlers." She kept her eyes locked on the leader. "Opportunity to rebuild some of what you seem to have lost since leaving the service." The invitation hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Maya knew from experience that redemption often started with a single choice, a moment of clarity that could redirect a life gone off course. The night had turned out differently than anyone had expected, but Maya Thompson was used to turning dangerous situations into opportunities for change. The tension in the air shifted as the low rumble of an approaching vehicle caught everyone's attention. A black SUV with tinted windows rolled to a stop under the park's lamppost, its government plates gleaming. Maya didn't need to look. She recognized the distinct sound of that particular engine. The driver's door opened, and Command Sergeant Marcus Torres stepped out, his 6'2" frame imposing even in civilian clothes. 20 years of Special Forces command presence radiated from him as he adjusted his leather jacket, revealing the police captain's badge on his belt. "Doc Thompson," he called out casually, as if happening upon a social gathering. "Thought I recognized your tactical formation on the security feed." He nodded toward the park's cameras, which had captured everything. "Still maintaining that perfect triangle defense, I see." Maya smiled, keeping her position. "Old habits, sir. Rex remembered your lessons well." Torres crossed his arms, surveying the scene with experienced eyes. "I was watching from the precinct cameras. Almost sent in a team. But then I saw Rex's positioning." He chuckled. "Knew you had it handled when you executed that textbook Special Forces de-escalation pattern." The leader of the group straightened instinctively at Torres's presence, military recognition kicking in. Torres noticed, his expression turning thoughtful. "Staff Sergeant James Miller," Torres said, surprising the leader. "75th Ranger Regiment, discharged 2021. 3 commendations for valor." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I make it my business to note every veteran in my jurisdiction." Miller's face showed shock at being identified. "Sir, I—" "Save it," Torres cut him off, though his tone remained measured. "I've watched you struggling since discharge. Seen you hanging with this crowd instead of coming to the VA." He glanced at Maya. "Lucky for you, you picked the wrong target, but the right person to set you straight." Maya took this moment to give Rex a subtle command. The shepherd relaxed his stance, but maintained his alert attention. "Captain Torres helped establish our veteran rehabilitation program," she explained. "He's the reason we can offer free service dog training to any veteran who needs it." Torres moved closer to the group, his presence both authoritative and understanding. "Here's what's going to happen," he said, using the same tone that had commanded Special Forces units. "You have 2 choices: face charges for tonight's activities, or show up at Dr. Thompson's clinic tomorrow at 800. "The clinic?" one of the men asked, confused. "We're starting a new program," Maya explained, sharing a knowing look with Torres. "Veterans helping train service dogs for other veterans. Physical therapy, emotional support, the whole package." She paused. "We need experienced handlers who understand both military discipline and the challenges of civilian transition." Torres nodded. "Consider it a redirection of your energy." His eyes fixed on Miller. "A chance to be part of something bigger than whatever this was supposed to be tonight." The transformation in Miller's posture was subtle but clear to the trained eyes watching him. The slight straightening of his spine, the unconscious shift back into military bearing. The others in his group seemed to respond to the change in their leader. 800, Miller repeated, his voice finding its professional edge again. "Yes, sir." Don't make me regret this alternative, Miller, Torres warned, though his tone carried hope rather than threat. Dr. Thompson's program has helped a lot of veterans find their way back. Don't waste the opportunity. As the group began to disperse, properly this time, Maya exchanged a silent nod with Torres. They both knew that sometimes the best way to handle a situation wasn't through force or punishment, but through understanding and redirection. The night had revealed not just a confrontation, but a chance for transformation. The next morning, Maya arrived at her clinic at 700, Rex trotting beside her with his usual professional demeanor. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Victory Veterinary parking lot, where Captain Torres was already waiting, leaning against his SUV with 2 coffee cups in hand. "Think they'll show?" Torres asked, handing her a cup of her favorite dark roast, a habit from their deployment days when good coffee was worth its weight in gold. Maya took a sip, smiling. "Miller will. The others might need convincing, but he'll be here." Her years of reading people rarely failed her. Military pride won't let him back down from a direct order, even if it was technically a choice. At 7:45, Miller arrived alone, wearing pressed khakis and a clean polo shirt, dressed for a job interview rather than community service. His transformation from the previous night was striking. "Dr. Thompson," he said formally, standing at parade rest, reporting as requested. Maya led him inside, where Rex immediately headed to his corner office bed, his usual morning routine. "First lesson," she said, gesturing to the shepherd. "Notice how Rex maintains awareness of his environment while appearing completely relaxed." Miller nodded, his professional military assessment kicking in. Before he could respond, the clinic door chimed again. 2 more men from the previous night entered, followed shortly by a third. "Welcome to Healing Paws," Maya announced to the group, her tone carrying the same authority she'd used in combat training sessions. "Today isn't about punishment. It's about understanding and growth." She led them to the clinic's training area, where 4 rescue dogs waited in their kennels. Each dog had been carefully selected for their potential as service animals, despite challenging backgrounds. Zeus here, Maya indicated a scared but dignified German shepherd, was abandoned after his military handler was killed in action. Shadow, she pointed to a sleek black lab, was found near a base in Afghanistan. Each of these dogs has faced prejudice because of their appearance or history. Sound familiar? The men shifted uncomfortably, but their military training kept them focused on her words. "Your task is simple," Maya continued. "You'll work with these dogs, learning their stories, understanding their potential. In 3 weeks, they'll be evaluated for our service dog program." She paused, making eye contact with each man. "Their success depends entirely on your commitment to looking past the surface." Miller stepped forward first, his eyes drawn to Zeus. The shepherd's scars told a story he understood too well. "Permission to begin, ma'am." Throughout the morning, Maya watched as their defensive postures gradually relaxed. Miller, particularly, showed natural talent with Zeus, his military experience translating smoothly into dog handling. During the lunch break, Torres stopped by to check their progress. He found the men sitting in a circle with the dogs, sharing stories of their service days, the kind of organic therapy that no structured program could quite replicate. "You know," Miller said quietly to Maya as they watched Zeus master a new command, "my sister was right about you, but not just because you saved her cat." Maya raised an eyebrow, waiting. "You see what others miss," he continued, his voice thick with understanding. "Just like with Maple's tumor, you saw past our ugly surface behavior to something worth saving." "The best revenge," Maya replied, watching the other men successfully working with their assigned dogs, "is showing people a better way forward." She smiled as Rex joined them, positioning himself naturally between former adversaries, now working toward a common goal. Sometimes the toughest exterior hides the most potential for change. The morning's success was just the beginning, but Maya knew from experience that true transformation often started with a single step in the right direction. 3 months later, Victory Veterinary Clinic hosted its annual fundraising gala in the community center. The large room buzzed with energy as service members, veterans, and civilians mingled, each with a story of how Maya's program had touched their lives. At the center of it all stood Maya, wearing a dress uniform she hadn't donned in years, Rex sitting perfectly at attention by her side. She watched with quiet satisfaction as Miller, now her lead training assistant, demonstrated advanced commands with Zeus to potential program donors. "Never thought I'd see him in a clinic polo, teaching kids about dog safety," Taurus commented, joining her at the observation point. They'd chosen this position instinctively. Old habits of maintaining tactical awareness of their surroundings never quite faded. "He's got a natural gift for it," Maya replied. Through the crowd, she could see the other men from that night, each now playing their own role in the program. One worked with PTSD veterans, another specialized in rehabilitation for injured dogs, and 2 others had become vital members of the community outreach team. Sarah, Miller's sister, approached with Maple, her now healthy cat, cradled in her arms. "Dr. Thompson, you've completely transformed my brother," she said, tears in her eyes. "He's the man I remember from before his deployment. Maybe even better." The evening's highlight came when Miller took the stage to share his story. His voice, once filled with misdirected anger, now carried the steady confidence of a man who had found his purpose. "6 months ago, I was lost," he began, Zeus sitting proudly beside him. "I had medals for bravery, but I was a coward where it really mattered. Then I made the mistake of judging someone based on nothing but appearance." He looked at Maya with deep respect. "Dr. Thompson could have had us arrested. Instead, she showed us how to be the people we were trained to be: protectors, leaders, members of a community." The audience listened intently as Miller described the transformation of both the dogs and their handlers, how working with abandoned and misjudged animals had helped them confront their own prejudices and heal their own wounds. "Today, our team has helped train 15 service dogs," he continued, each one placed with a veteran in need. "But more importantly, we've learned that the strongest unit isn't one that looks the same. It's one that brings different experiences together for a common purpose." As if on cue, the doors opened and 5 veterans entered with their newly trained service dogs, the latest graduates of the program. Each dog had been trained by one of the men from that fateful night, and each veteran represented a different background, united by their service and their need for healing. Maya stepped forward to present the graduation certificates, Rex moving in perfect sync with her. The ceremony represented everything she'd fought for, both on the battlefield and off: the idea that everyone deserved a chance to show their true potential. 6 months ago, she addressed the crowd. These dogs were considered unadoptable. These trainers were on a dangerous path, and some of these veterans had lost hope. She paused, letting her gaze sweep the room. "Today, they're all proof that when we look past our initial judgments, we find strength in our differences and healing in understanding." The applause that followed wasn't just for the graduates, it was for the transformation they represented. Maya felt Rex lean slightly against her leg, his way of showing approval. She reached down to scratch behind his ears, remembering how this all started with an evening walk and a choice to turn confrontation into opportunity. In the end, her revenge hadn't been about punishment, it had been about transformation. And watching Miller lead his team of trainers forward to receive their instructor certifications, Maya knew she'd chosen the sweetest revenge of all: turning enemies into allies, fear into understanding, and prejudice into purpose.